John Lurie is an American musician, painter, actor, director, and producer. He co-founded the Lounge Lizards Jazz Ensemble, has acted in 19 films, including Stranger Than Paradise and Down by Law, has composed and performed music for 20 television and film works, and produced, directed, and starred in the Fishing with John television series. In 1996 his soundtrack for Get Shorty was nominated for a Grammy Award, and his album The Legendary Marvin Pontiac, Greatest Hits has been praised by critics and musicians alike. Since 2000 Lurie has suffered from symptoms attributed to chronic Lyme disease, and has focused his attention on painting. His art has been shown in galleries and museums around the world. His primitivist painting Bear Surprise became an internet meme in Russia in 2006. Early life: Lurie was born in Minneapolis and was raised with his brother Evan and his sister Liz in Worcester, Massachusetts. In high school Lurie played basketball and harmonica, jamming with Mississippi Fred McDowell and Canned Heat in 1968. He briefly played the harmonica in a band from Boston, but soon switched to the guitar and eventually the saxophone. After high school Lurie hitchhiked across the United States to Berkeley, California. He moved to New York City in 1974, then briefly visited London, where he performed his first saxophone solo at the Acme Gallery. Music = The Lounge Lizards =. In 1978 John formed the Lounge Lizards with his brother Evan Lurie. The Lurie brothers were the only constant members in the band through multiple lineup changes. Robert Palmer of the New York Times described the band as staking out new territory west of Mingus, east of Bernard Herrmann. While originally a somewhat satirical fake jazz combo spawned by the noisy no-wave music scene, the Lounge Lizards gradually became a showcase for Lurie's increasingly sophisticated compositions. Alongside the Lurie brothers, personnel included at different times guitarists Arto Lindsay, Oren Blaudan, David Tronzo, and Mark Ribot. Drummers Grant Calvin Weston and Billy Martin. Bassists Eric Sanko and Tony Garnier. Trumpeter Stephen Bernstein. And saxophonists Roy Nathanson and Michael Blake. The band continued making music for 20 years. Marvin Pontiac In 1999 Lurie released the album The Legendary Marvin Pontiac, Greatest Hits, a posthumous collection of the work of an African Jewish musician named Marvin Pontiac, a fictional character he created. The album includes a biographical profile describing the hard life of the troubled genius, and the cover showcases a photograph purported to be one of the few ever taken of the fictional character. Lurie wrote the music and performed with John Medsky, Billy Martin, G. Calvin Weston, Mark Ribot, and Tony Shear. The album received praise from David Bowie, Angelique Kiddo, Iggy Pop, Leonard Cohen, and others. A Marvin Pontiac biography was published, and subsequently removed, by AllMusic. I thought people would be up in arms about pretending to be a black person, Lurie said in a 2008 interview, but people were more upset that I pretend to be an insane person. In the same 2008 eMusic interview he explained, for a long time, I was threatening to do a vocal record. But the idea of me putting out a record where I sang seemed ostentatious or pretentious. Like the music of Telly Savalas. I don't sing very well, I was shy about it. As a character, it made it easier. John Lurie National Orchestra Parallel to the final version of the Lounge Lizards in the early 1990s, Lurie formed a smaller group, the ironically named John Lurie National Orchestra. Personnel were Lurie on alto and soprano saxes, Grant Calvin Weston on drum kit, and Billy Martin on congas, timbales, kalimba, and other small percussion. Unlike the tightly arranged music of the Lounge Lizards, this group's music was heavily improvised and compositions were credited to all three musicians. They released one album, and recorded music for the Fishing with John TV series. In February 2014 John Lurie National Orchestra released The Invention of Animals, a collection of out-of-print studio tracks and unreleased live recordings from the 90s. Columnist Mel Minter wrote, "This new release may require a reassessment of Lurie the saxophonist because the playing is engagingly fluid, inventive, and visceral and well worth revisiting. The emotional immediacy of Lurie's playing and that of his partners makes for riveting stuff. Think of his sax not so much as a musical instrument, but instead, as a window with a clear view of his soul. Jeff Jackson of Jazz's adds, the resulting music is delicate, primal and utterly gorgeous. Film and television. In 1993 Lurie composed the theme to Late Night with Conan O'Brien with Howard Shore. The theme was also used on The Tonight Show when O'Brien hosted. He formed his own record label in 1998, Strange and Beautiful Music, and released the Lounge Lizards album Queen of All Ears and a Fishing with John soundtrack. Lurie has composed scores for over 20 movies, including Stranger Than Paradise, Down by Law, Mystery Train, Clay Pigeons, Animal Factory, and Get Shorty, which earned him a Grammy Award nomination. In the 1980s Lurie starred in the Jim Jarmusch films Stranger Than Paradise and Down by Law, and made cameos in the films Permanent Vacation and Downtown 81. He went on to act in other notable films, including Paris, Texas and The Last Temptation of Christ. From 2001 to 2003 he starred in the HBO prison series as inmate Greg Penders. Lurie wrote, directed, and starred in the TV series Fishing with John in 1991 and 1992. The series later became a cult success, featuring guests Tom Waits, Willem Dafoe, Matt Dillon, Jim Jarmusch, and Dennis Hopper. It aired on IFC and Bravo, and has since been released on DVD by Criterion. Painting. Lurie has been painting since the 1970s. The majority of his early works are in watercolor and pencil, but in the 2000s he began to work in oil. He has said of his art, "My paintings are a logical development from the ones that were taped to the refrigerator 50 years ago." His work has been exhibiting since July 2003, when 2 pieces were shown at the Nolan Eekman Gallery in New York City. He had his first solo gallery exhibition at Anton Kern Gallery in May and June 2004, and has subsequently been exhibited at Gallery Daniel Bloch in Munich, Gallery Lelong in Saar 1/4 Rich, the Gallery Gabriel Rolt in Amsterdam, the Basel International Art Fair at Roebling Hall and the P.S. 1 Contemporary Art Center in New York, the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts, the Next Art Fair in Chicago, the Museum Luxembourg, the Watari Museum of Contemporary Art in Tokyo, Gallery Brown in Los Angeles, and the University of the Arts in Philadelphia. The Museum of Modern Art has acquired some of his work for their permanent collection. Lurie has released 2 art books. Learn to Draw, a compilation of black and white drawings, was published by Walther Koenig in June 2006. A fine example of art includes over 80 reproductions of his work, and was published by Powerhouse Books in 2008. Lurie's watercolor painting Bear Surprise achieved enormous popularity on numerous Russian websites, in an internet meme known as Prevd. Personal life. Lurie has experienced debilitating ill health since 2000, with initially baffling neurological symptoms. At one point he was told he had a year to live. The doctors he consulted in the first few years did not agree on a diagnosis, but by 2006 8 separate doctors agreed that it was chronic Lyme disease. Lurie has stated, "I have advanced Lyme." Lurie initially became ill in 1994. The illness prevents him from acting or performing music, so he spends his time painting. Stalking incident. In August 2010 Tad Friend wrote a piece in The New Yorker about Lurie disappearing from New York to avoid a man named John Perry, whom Friend said was stalking Lurie. In the online literary magazine The Rumpus, Rick Moody noted that Friend's profile in The New Yorker, nominally about Lurie and his art, was 2/3 to 3/4 about Perry, including a full-page photo of Perry standing in front of one of his own paintings. Moody confirmed that Lurie was very ill with chronic Lyme disease, and described Perry as a deceitful stalker capable of violence. In May 2011 Perry undertook a public hunger strike to protest The New Yorker characterizing him as a stalker. Commenting about the protest, Lurie said, "He's conducting a hunger strike a half-block from my house to prove he's not a stalker." Lurie described the article as wildly inaccurate, noting that its publication did not resolve anything, and that the situation continues. Editor David Remnick said the piece in his magazine was thoroughly reported and fact-checked, but in a letter to The New Yorker in August 2012, Several interviewees claim their words had been twisted, misquoted, or ignored, and that the man presented in the article, Lurie, is not the man that we know. In a February 2014 interview, Lurie told the LA Times, "What one would hope is that the beauty in the music and in the paintings can somehow transcend and invalidate the kind of sickness that led to the article being written as it was and the kind of irresponsibility that allowed it to be published." Filmography: Rome 78, Men in Orbit, Underground USA, Permanent Vacation, The Offenders, Subway Riders, Stranger Than Paradise, Paris, Texas, Desperately Seeking Susan, Down by Law, The Last Temptation of Christ, Il Piccolo Diavolo, Wild at Heart, John Lurie and the Lounge Lizards Live in Berlin 1991, Smoke, Blue in the Face, Just Your Luck, New Rose Hotel, Sleepwalk. Discography John Lurie John Lurie National Orchestra, The Invention of Animals, 2014, John Lurie National Orchestra, Men with Sticks, The Legendary Marvin Pontiac, Greatest Hits. Lounge Lizards Lounge Lizards, Live from the Drunken Boat, Live, 1979 1981, Big Heart, Live in Tokyo, No Pain for Cakes, Voice of Chunk, Live in Berlin, Volume 1, Live in Berlin, Volume 2, Queen of All Ears. Soundtracks Stranger Than Paradise and the Resurrection of Albert Ayler, Down by Law and Variety, Mystery Train, The Days with Jack, Get Shorty, Excess Baggage, Fishing with John, African Swim and Manny and Low. References. External links, media related to John Lurie at Wikimedia Commons.